It's variety.
Hello and welcome to the Variety Show podcast with me, Adam Sternberg, and we are here again at the fabulous Magician's Table in Bermondsey. And today's guest is remarkable female magician Laura London. Welcome, Laura, to the podcast.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
Very nice to see you. Now, I'd like to start, if I may, at the very beginning. Where were you born? That big.
Funnily enough, London.
Were you?
Otherwise, that would be a terrible name, wouldn't it, Adam, really? You know.
You could have been Laura Birmingham.
I could have. It does have the same ring to
Laura
it.
Devises.
Yes, or, you know, Laura Liverpool. Laura Liverpool. No, I was born in Westminster. I was born in the heart of London, really, in the West End. My mum used to own a big nightclub.
Did she?
So, yeah, she owned a very
whereabouts?
famous nightclub in Margaret Street. She owned a club called Bootleggers. It was the old speakeasy back in the day. So I was born into a bit of a rock and roll world and London life, hence the name.
And so growing up, I presume you were exposed to that type of world, nightclub world?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was very lucky in a sense because, you know, I was surrounded by rock and roll stars and actors. And, you know, we used to spend Christmases at John Entwistle's house from The Who and she booked magicians. So, you know, I saw all kinds of entertainment. Didn't last very long. Sadly, my mum had to give up the nightclub when I was quite young. And we went from, you know, living in the West End to not. But during those very, very early years, yeah, I was very much surrounded by entertainment.
So how old do you think you were when you left that, when she had to sell?
Oh, like 6 or 7.
But you still remember that?
Yeah, of course. You know, I mean, you know, it was wild. So of course I remember it. I used to be in the club in the daytimes, you know. I don't know, I suppose I'd be about 3 or 4 and I'd go up to the bar and I'd say to the barman, can I have a glass of red wine, please? And what I'd get is Ribena, obviously. Or if I'd asked for champagne, I'd get appetizer. And then what you'd see is my mum would just see me staggering or pretending to stagger around the nightclub as if I was drunk. Hence, probably why I turned out the way I did in my teenage years, probably.
We'll get on to your teenage years in a bit. Then was it a little bit of a shock for you when you moved out of that environment? Was it?
Yeah, it was a huge shock, you know, but then, you know, probably no more so than for my mum. You know, my mum did everything she could for me, but, you know, to lose, you know, her home and her business and things like that and sort of start again with a child who was very much ADHD, diagnosed at the age of 6.
So you were diagnosed?
Yeah, unlike many people
even
now.
Back then?
Mm-hmm. It wasn't called ADHD.
That wasn't a thing, was it?
So it was called ADD, and I was climbing the walls. My mum had to
literally.
Yes, my mum had to deal with quite a lot, and it was really, really hard because she was not only dealing with the loss of my dad and the business and the home and all of those things. It also she had to deal with me, a bit of a nightmare terror of a child. And she read in a magazine once, there was this sort of doctor in London, and they were sort of running tests. There was a bit of not a school, but a sort of summer, you know, and I was sent there. And after a short stint of staying, I think it specialised in people, young people who had sleep disorders and stuff like that. And they ultimately said, look, your daughter's got ADD, attention deficit disorder, now known as ADHD. And she's unlikely to do well in school, hold down a proper job. But look, if she's into anything creative, it should be encouraged. So after that, you know, my mum tried piano lessons or whatever, you know, because it's true, you know, things like ADHD and any sort of neurodivergence, if you have something to focus on, it can be really, really helpful in that. And it certainly was for me. However, I was no musician. Tried drums for about 24 hours till that kit was kicked out the house. And eventually I saw a magician and I said, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And I've never turned back, you know.
So when you saw that magician, how old were you?
So I was 8. I was at a party.
So you remember that? You saw a magician, that would have been a kid's magician, I presume, was it?
It was clear as day. I saw a kid's entertainer. He performed an effect called the Run Rabbit Run, which is this sort of wooden contraption that a little rabbit would sort of appear and disappear, and a bit like a Punch and Judy show, the kids would shout, you know, he's over there, you know, while the magician would look away. And it's so weird. It was instant for me. It wasn't the magic, it wasn't the trick that made me fall in love with it. It wasn't the magician either. But I could see that just by turning these little knobs and doing these really simple, I believe it was at the time, quite simple magic effects could make someone smile so much. These kids were going wild, and I loved that. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And when my mum picked me up that day, I said, I want to be a magician. And thankfully, she didn't think it was a silly job. In fact, she knew that it was, in fact, something that I could have done.
So it sounds you're very lucky having the mother you had then, who was open to whatever you wanted to do, the opportunities.
Well, I think when you're told as a parent that your daughter's not going to be able to focus particularly well in school, and that might affect her in later years, which it very much did, then you will be encouraging. And given the fact that my mum was a dancer and in entertainment, it was quite an easy thing for her to at least put her effort and time in.
She understood.
So every birthday and Christmas, I got a small budget to spend at the magic shop. I spent all my time in Davenport's, which was a fantastic little hidden shop in Charing Cross Station.
But what I think is interesting is what you said about what you were into was the reaction the magic caused in the children. So it wasn't the magic itself, it was the effect it had on people. And I believe now, is that still the case, the effect that you have on people?
As I've grown with magic and I've tried every principle in magic, I'd say the different genres of magic are as vast as music, mentalism and illusionists and close-up magic. We're all very, very different, but yet we have this same passion for the umbrella, I suppose, that is the art of magic. And as you grow with it, you start to find other aspects that you love as much as the astonishment that you can give to other people. So yes, back then it was very much, I want to make people smile and make people happy. Now it's, just the simple things like sitting at home and practicing makes me incredibly happy. Writing a new show, getting engaged with conversation with other people who love magic, that excites me and inspires me. So, yeah, a bit of it all really now.
A bit of it all. So, in between seeing that first show at 8, which really inspired you, and that's now what you wanted to do as your life, how long was it before you actually, got your first gig? When was your first gig? Do you remember your first paid gig?
Oh, well, before that, I was putting on shows for whoever wanted to see.
Of course.
I had, I think, every Marvin's Magic kit that you could possibly get. And he used to have this sort of executive close-up case. And I used to walk around, and, if someone says, oh, what's that? I'd say, it's my magic kit. And I'd show them. I guess my first gigs were very much anywhere and everywhere and anyone who'd be willing to watch. By the time I was 12, I started to become a real tearaway, and I very rarely went to school. I was a bit of a troublemaker, and I used to sit outside. I used to run away from school, sit outside on my porch, waiting for my mum to come home, because I somehow thought that'd be better than being in a school. And I used to see this man across the road, and he had this curly moustache and these fantastic outfits. And he used to carry these weird boxes. And I was like, that is a magician. Like, I know that's a magician. And I'd beg my mum to take me to his house. But of course, she didn't want to take me to a strange man's house, because that's very weird. And so eventually she caved. We went to his house, and she knocks on the door. She says, hi, my daughter really wants to be a magician, and she thinks you are one. And he laughs and in a very deep Hungarian voice says, why, I am a magician. I'm the great George Kovari.
Wow.
He was a legend.
Wow, even I've heard of him.
Yeah, so he was an absolute legend I lived across the road from. So I'd go into his house, and he showed me all different kinds of magic and posters and props and all of these kind of things that really got me to a place where, even though I was a bit of a tearaway, I knew it's what I wanted to do. That was sort of a big another pivotal moment for me, thinking, I want to do this. So I suppose I wouldn't say my first paid gig is what's important. My first gigs really was when I left home and school at 15. My first gigs were going to like the Punch and Judy pub in Covent Garden. And what I would do is I'd say, if I do a bit of magic, could I get some food? Because the one thing my mum was always very good at was she was good at many things, but one of the things was taking me into charity shops and finding really, really expensive, beautiful clothes that cost 10 quid. So although, I left home and school when I was 15, I kind of looked quite good. Do you know what I mean? I was quite alternative and a bit kind of crazy looking. So, it wasn't that difficult to go into places and say, look, I'm trying to make it as a magician. This is what I want to do. If I come and do some magic for your guests, can I get 50 quid or can I...
But still to have the courage, the balls to...
I had no choice. I needed to eat. Courage comes from all kinds of places.
Courage comes, what's the saying? Necessity is the mother of invention, I suppose, as well. But even so, you still had to get out there and push yourself.
I was a confident kid.
Because that is a trouble with the difficulty for a lot of performers, not just magicians. They might be very good, but they're not confident pushing themselves forward. That's an important.
That's very true. But then cut to just going back to your question, first paid gigs. I'm doing magic. Yes, I've left home and school. I now have a roof over my head. I've got a flat. Not through magic, through the council. I was very, very lucky to have a man called Pete Fernandez who really, really helped me. And by the time I was 18, on my birthday, I joined the magic circle. So I literally do my exam on my birthday pretty much, and I pass within days. So I became the youngest female at that time. And I found it hard to go because I was terrified. I didn't know anyone there. I walk through the doors, and as I'm standing there with all these men with white hair and ties looking at me, very much a punk rocker, probably not dressed in the way that they would have liked me to be dressed, a woman comes over to me and she says, are you a member? I said yes. And she said, well, if you're going to start coming here, you need to start dressing more appropriately. So I think this is not the place for me. So I leave and I walk out the door, and this woman stops me, another woman, and she goes, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Laura. I wasn't Laura London, I was just Laura. And I said, who are you? And the man stood next to her, said, this is the woman your mother warned you about. And I said, hang on a minute, are you Fay Presto? She said, yes. And I said, hang on, no, this is exactly the woman my mother told me to find. And after that, it was Fay that mentored me, took me under her wing. She got me my first paid gigs. She introduced me to my late manager, Jenny Dunster. She had me follow her around her residencies and then give me her act, which was, unusual and amazing to be doing something like that. And
so actually, Fay has been mentioned by a number of people actually in this podcast about
she's a legend.
About exactly what you said, her kindness in helping people.
I'd say she more than helped me. She, in many ways, saved my life. And when I say she took me under her wing, she was, for those first 3 or 4 years, was pivotal in me becoming a magician. She and I laugh now because she's like, oh, Laura, she does all this clever stuff now.
And she's still around, isn't she?
Very much so. She's still working. She's busy. She's busier than me. But,
because I remember seeing her, because she was at Langham's, wasn't she, for some time?
She still does Langham's.
She still does Langham's.
She's still there sometimes, yeah. She's a busy lady, very much in demand.
Amazing. So your mother, Fay Presto, Jenny Dunster, 3 women who probably are your pivots, the people who could change.
Absolutely. Huge part of me being who I am. Yeah.
Most of the magicians I've ever seen are men. There seem, at least from what I've seen, to be very few magic magicians who are women. Is there a reason for that, or are there just magicians that I don't know about?
Well, firstly, there have been women in magic forever. They were, in fact, 100 years ago, they were topping the bills all over the country and all over the world. Magicians like Mercedes Talma flew all the way from England all the way to South Africa. And Houdini,
was she English?
She was English. And Houdini himself said she was the greatest sleight of hand performer that ever lived. Not female. In fact, which brings me to, you introduced me as a female magician, Laura London. I never do that.
Because I should just call you a magician.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. And I apologise for that.
No, you don't have to. It's a common thing that happens.
But I think I did it, I suppose, subconsciously, because it is so unusual. somehow.
But yes, perhaps you think so. I don't think it is as much anymore, especially with TV shows such as Britain's Got Talent. Fool Us has an awful lot of brilliant magicians on it. Plenty of women go on BGT and AGT, for example, and they do very well. So we have now a format in which people can be seen, which is something that hadn't been before. So that's part of it. When I talk about historical females in magic, a lot of the reason you don't know who they are is because they were written out of history, generally, or at least a lot of them were. But they existed and they were brilliant. And in fact, some of them better than the ones now. I also believe that part of the problem with women in magic, and obviously not all, I have some of my favourite people in magic are women, Fay Presto, Billy Kidd, Catherine Mills. We are different, men and women, right? We are, inherently.
Yeah.
And magic is a very nerdy profession, something that, for example, I always put it like this. When a little boy gets a car as a kid, like those little toy cars as a kid, and they can just crash it into the wall over and over and over again. Girls don't do that, really, They do when they've got ADHD, right? So we have to also understand just that the nature of practice in itself is something that can be quite different, and something that maybe a boy might do more than a girl. Okay, maybe I'm generalising, and I am very much so, because that is so not the case really anymore. I'm saying, back in the day when girls had to be girls and boys had to be boys, and thankfully we are in a different world now where that is not the case, thank God. But in the 50s, girls had to be pretty and wear little outfits and get into boxes. That was what was to be expected.
And there was the whole sort of Debbie McGee effect, I suppose. Is the female magician's assistant was seen, I saw as the role that women had within magic was that on TV. That is what you tend to see in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Well, certainly the 50s, 60s and 70s. I think in the 90s, women started to really change the perception in almost every industry. The late 80s, when women started wearing suits and going, I'm going to change that narrative, which they did. So I'd say from that point onwards, things changed. For example, when I fell in love with magic at 8 years old, I didn't know there was a problem, because my local magic shop, Davenport's, it was a woman that was behind the counter. Her name was Betty. So when I'd go there and spend my money, it was her that was showing me the magic that I was going to buy. So it wasn't until I was a bit older, maybe my teenage years, because I also entered the Young Magician of the Year competition at the Magic Circle when I was 14. And then I start to hear whispers, there's very few women out there. Or I'd go to the International Magic Convention, which was the London convention, which was just absolutely incredible. And I'd go, there's very few women around. There's about 5% of the industry, right, that are women. But we have to also understand that there are reasons for it. It's not because the men have pushed us out. That might be some people's narrative. That's not mine at all. I just don't think women really wanted to be magicians. And they do now more than ever.
Okay, so then that's the interesting question. Why? Why did magicians...
That's what I'm saying. I just don't, because they wanted to do other things. Why? Who knows? You can't speak for, for a whole group of people. But it is a fact,
But 5%, considering you're 50% of the population, is not very many, really.
But that's okay. Less competition for me, huh? No, look, and also I don't agree with that. I'm taking that statement back.
I know you don't really agree with that, but I still can't quite get my head round...
Okay, well, let me give you then another statistic.
Yes.
The Magic Circle's Young Magicians Initiative has 15% that are young women.
Yeah.
That's how much it's growing.
Okay.
So it's a huge shift. And I think that shift has happened because of television, the internet, the accessibility, the fact that girls don't have to be forced to be girly anymore. They can do whatever the hell they want, and they always have been able to, but now they really are taking that on board. And I think that's made a huge difference in the way that we talk about gender, how we talk about equality.
So do you feel you yourself have a role in that? Do you think that's an important thing for you to be doing, is to continually to promote the access to women to magic actively?
I think my role is to advance the art of magic, full stop. You know, if I can leave this world a little bit better than the way I found it by encouraging people to read more magic books, to study rather than just go and get a packet trick from a magic shop and think that they can call themselves a magician. Those are the things I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about the history of magic. I want to keep that alive. I think I can do that by sharing the stories of people like Mercedes Talma, the Queen of Coins, who I mentioned earlier. She's a powerhouse of a magician, and yes, she was a woman. That's how we change the narrative, by reminding people that we're here, but not by forcing people to do it, you know. I feel without trying, a lot of people say that I have been part of their journey. You know, young girls, when they come up to me at magic conventions, because I lecture and I teach magic as well. And that's always just a lovely thing. But it's as lovely when a young boy says the same thing to me too.
No, I'm sure. Is there any difference between close-up and stage magic as far as women are concerned? Are there equal numbers in both, or do you think?
I'd say that there's more stage magicians that are women by quite a lot.
No, and so that's my thought. I think, and pull me up on this if you think I'm wrong, but I think for me the issue lies more in close-up with female magicians rather than stage magic.
Yeah, because you've got to really, I mean, look, you've got to study all genres of magic, whatever you're doing. Obviously, that is in any industry. But close-up involves a different skill set in terms of, say, for example, sleight of hand and stuff like that. It takes a specific kind of person. Like, for example, you get a lot of fantastic, brilliant dancers that say either work with a magician or see a magician and think, you know, I could do that illusion. And you know what? In most cases, they do it better and they do a brilliant job. So that transition is quite not an easy one. It takes a lot of work, but it's a transition that makes sense. Whereas to go from not being a close-up magician to becoming one, that is a journey that takes a lot longer, takes a lot of focus, takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of time to get to a place not only that your skill is good enough, but also that your presentation is good enough. And I always believe it's not about the magic. The magic should be good. That's a given. How you present it and how you are entertaining is the most important part of all of it.
Well, no, I'd agree. I think in a way it's more important than the magic itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about the communication. It's about the personality. It's about the showmanship.
Absolutely. It's number one. Yeah.
That's true. I was speaking to a magician the other day, and this is genuinely, he was also very much into the history of magic and encyclopedias. He told me that there are some magicians who believe that real magic exists. Okay,
that's a different thing you're saying. So if you're saying that there are some performing magicians that believe in real magic, well, that is, I think, nonsense, because a performing magician understands that we have to practice, learn a skill. I do not treat my audiences like idiots. I never would tell them that what I'm doing is real, because they know that I've learned something and that I'm performing it.
There's two words: magic, trick. Trick implies it's a trick. It's the audience is somehow being fooled, whereas magic somehow implies almost the opposite somehow.
I mean, I disagree with that. I think magic, depending on the context of your conversation, is how you can perceive that. But if you're saying that you spoke to a magician the other day and that magicians are searching for that moment, that real magic moment, that is different. Because you can achieve that by performing something really special. Yes, there might be method. Yes, maybe it is because you've understood psychology. So maybe it's in the world of mentalism. But that moment of real magic through performance and through the kind of magic that I do and that the magicians that you've been speaking to do, that's a different thing. And I agree, chasing that is a really special thing, because what you're doing is you're chasing a moment, something that will stay with someone forever. And I think all magicians should try and strive for that. It's like when you leave them with a playing card and they keep it forever because that moment was really special to them, you know? But hopefully without a playing card, and you can do it just with your action.
You look at sort of things throughout history, and I'm thinking more like religious experiences. I mean, this is getting a bit deep, but the whole Bible is full of things which are like magic, things that Jesus did, for example. So people want to believe in that, don't they? There's a necessity somehow. And I think that's the attraction of magic. Somehow I think punters, although they know it's a trick, they somehow want it not to be. They want it to be real.
I would say that I might not be very popular for saying this, but I believe very much that the life of Brian was a very true story. And Brian went ahead and did a couple of magic tricks. Everyone's chasing him down the street. Gosh, you must be the Messiah. He's like, I'm really not. I just did a magic trick. I bought it in the magic shop. I swear, the more he says that he's not a magician, he's definitely a Messiah.
So all those.
I mean,
okay.
I just think they're very different. I know you said, we're going deep here. I just think they are not the same. People that believe in religious experiences, and and I don't not necessarily believe in those things. Actually, what I'm saying is that magic, the kind of magic that I do, is so far from the kind of magic that you're talking about, that the people that will be discussing those worlds will be inherently very, very different kind. I'm quite a spiritual person, I believe that the sun, the earth, the trees and all of those things keep me alive more than a man with a beard. But that is, to me, a very different conversation and has really nothing to do with me doing card tricks. It's kind of where I'm at with the conversation.
No, that's true. But my only point, I suppose, is that there is an inherent need almost of magic for people.
Yeah, I think so. And I think whether that magic come in the form of a religious experience,
yes, but that's what
whether it come in the form of sitting in this beautiful theatre here at the Magician's Table or at the Magic Circle when you see our shows, and you sit down and you watch a magician and something has happened and that astonishment has really had an impact on that person. Everyone needs that in their life, in whatever format it comes. And I will agree with you on that for sure.
Good. Okay,
we'll get somewhere.
Link to this. You've done magic, I presume, all over the world. Are people's appreciation or how their reactions to magic different depending on the cultures, or?
100%. For example, when I was in Asia, so I performed in Tokyo, I performed in China, Shanghai, and Hong Kong for corporates. So, we're not talking stage shows. I mean, an interactive experience between myself and a small group of people at an event. Yeah. The reactions, the communication, all of it is wildly different. I perform a lot in France. They have a very different way about them. They love the arts, whereas here in England, the reactions can be a little bit aloof, but astonished. Go to America, they're wild for it. Reactions are very different wherever you go.
And even within an event in the UK, you go up to a group of people and do a close-up routine. The reactions will be different depending on the type of person, I presume.
I mean, look, people love magic. The reactions here in this venue are always just amazing, So, yes, maybe slightly different to the ones in America, but they're very over the top. So, they might run away from you. You don't get that so much here. You don't get too many, Brits seeing a magic trick and running out the door and going, "Fuck, that was what just happened," because we are just not like that. Really.
No, we
you do get it occasionally. When it happens, it's quite funny. But generally, we're a really good audience unless we're drunk on beer.
People come here because they know it's magic. But if you're doing a corporate event where they're not expecting it and you come up to a group of people, you can get varied reactions, I presume.
I mean, I I love all my audiences so much in whatever form they come, whether it's because they've come to see my cheat show, which I wrote, so therefore they are there to see something I've done, an easy audience to please because they're there for you, or whether you turn up to a corporate event. It's about gauging that audience. I'll stand at the back of the room and I will know instantly who the people are that don't want to see magic.
So there'll be people you definitely avoid.
It doesn't happen often, but I might go, like, for example, there's a group of people there. They're obviously engaged in a very serious networking conversation. For example, maybe I'll hit them later, but I'm not going to interrupt their conversation. It's about really understanding the room, gauging it, looking around. You get a lot of magicians that don't do that and, go bowling over and interrupting people at the wrong times. And then they say, no, thank you. I don't want to see magic. And then that really knocks a magician's confidence. I don't get that because one of the things I don't do is I've learnt, I'm not saying maybe in the early days I didn't get the odd person saying, thank you, but no, it just doesn't happen anymore. So because I'm performing magic for the people that want to see magic and I'm pretty good at reading people, then I'm very fortunate to have great audiences almost always,
Now, I must admit, something which I haven't said is I used to not like magic myself.
Oh, that's not very good for an agent.
No, I used to when you got to bed. But I do remember magicians saying at that time that said more about me than the magic, actually. So,
or that you'd seen some terrible magicians.
I've seen some terrible. Well, but I don't know. I think some people don't like the idea of being tricked or need to work it out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Was that you? Is that the sort of person you are, Adam?
Was
the sort of person that doesn't like to be fooled?
I'm going out. I like being fooled.
Oh, you do?
I don't know, not sure. But there's a control element, isn't there? If you're a control freak, you don't quite like...
Are you a control freak, Adam?
Excuse me, whose podcast is this? Yes, I'll be happy to be your guest, and you can ask me those questions. But
it's too tough, that one. Sorry.
Too tough. Beauty of live stuff is that things quite often go wrong, actually, don't they?
I remember all the big moments because, they stick in your memory. So it's about 2012, I decide to really focus on sleight of hand card magic, in particular in the world of gambling cheating techniques. And so I really immerse myself in the world, I focus, and I decide that I'm going to write a show and take it to the Edinburgh Fringe in 2016. So it's sort of, I practice for a few years. It gets to about 2014, 15. I start to write. I've got some help from my dear friend like David Britland and others, Tim Sutton, who helped me write the music. And I worked really, really hard on this show. I've never done Edinburgh before. It's a beast, I know you know.
It's a beast.
And I didn't even realise you could take a Monday off. So I went all in, 28 shows, boom, every single day, 2 p.m. at the Voodoo Rooms. And I'm getting into my stride. I've written a show. I couldn't believe it. Bear in mind, as an ADHD kid, I thought, there's no way. My favourite kind of magic to watch is one with a story. And I never thought I'd be able to write a story. I thought that was far beyond my limits. And it turned out that I was wrong about that. And I proved to myself that I could, which was amazing, right? So I'm now in Edinburgh with a show. And I'm on day, I don't know, like maybe 18. And I'm going, so, do you know what? I've had a couple of good reviews. It's not going that bad. It's all right. And if you know Edinburgh, which I know many people that will be listening, and I know you certainly do, when you're in a venue, you don't have much space for your props, right? So they all sort of go in a back room, shared with everyone else, the 10 other people that are sharing it with you that day. And so I have a table, and under my table is a very specific shelf. And it's not a particularly sturdy shelf. And on it are lots of playing cards and lots of props that I need. And it somehow obviously gets knocked backstage and I don't notice. And that day in the audience was literally some of the greatest magicians in the world and my good friends. So, that was the day that David Britland, who had helped me write it, was sat in the front. Richard Wiseman, Guy Hollingworth, just brilliant, brilliant magicians. We're all sat there. I sat down, ready to do my show. I've done 18. It's all going to be fine. And the shelf just goes like that. And all the cards just mix themselves into a way in which I cannot do the show. I have no outs. I am totally screwed. I stare at this front row of legends. I have no words but to laugh because, it's so horrendous. I remember saying to the technician at the back, I said, can you go in my bag? Just get me one deck of cards while I'm using my foot to kind of scrape back anything from the table. To this day, I have no idea what I did in that show. It's like a nightmare that went on for 50 minutes. And
we still do the show.
Well, I had no choice. I had 50 minutes I had to fill. No real
There's a
idea
monologue.
what I did. And all of those people are still great friends of mine. In fact, I saw Richard just yesterday. I have never had the balls to ask any of them what the hell I did for 50 minutes on that day. So things go wrong.
But isn't that the joy? Well, not the joy at the time, but
I learned so much.
But the joy of live entertainment is, and I say this a lot, the fact that things go wrong. If you knew that it was going to be a perfect show, it wouldn't quite have the edge to it.
No, I mean, and I still do that show very much so. I mean, I was just in France doing it last week. So it had a purpose, and things like that, those mistakes or the things that happen that's so horrific, or an audience member who says something that you go, oh gosh, okay, I don't want that to happen again. How do I deal with it? All of those things add to the show becoming better as time goes on. And I would say I'm so comfortable with that show now. And it's because of moments like that.
Well, no, exactly. And
you learn from it.
And you learn to think.
You learn about it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, now at this point in the proceedings, normally the guest, that's you.
Really?
Yes. I know.
I thought it was you.
I knew this was turning into your podcast, but I'm bringing it back to being about me. I have been known historically. I know you've got ADHD. My cack-handedness is what I have.
Properly diagnosed.
Properly diagnosed
Okay.
cack-handedness.
Right.
As my mother always said.
Okay.
Cack-handed. Yeah.
Perfect person to do magic.
Perfect person to do magic.
Okay,
Yes.
let's not teach you the sleight of hand.
No. I can hold a pack of cards without dropping it.
Okay, I thought maybe we'll do a very simple.
Yes. What's that called?
We're going to do a very simple spring in the hat.
Spring.
Okay, so we're going to take our thumb. We're going to do it a different way. I know a magician's going to watch this and go, I think this is a simpler way.
Fine.
We're going to put our thumb on the bottom left corner.
Yes.
Got this?
Yeah. Left.
Are you
corner.
right-handed?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now your middle finger will be on the top right-hand corner.
Hold on. Where's my? Oh, my thumb's at the back. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
there you
Yes.
go.
Yes.
You've got this, Adam. I can feel it in my bones.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
The corners, Adam, though.
Oh, the corners. Yes. Oh, the other thing I'm very bad at is following instructions.
What I'm very excited about is where this is going to end up. Okay.
Floor,
Our first finger,
yes.
right, which is going to be here. So let's have a look where you are. We're going to just bend that in the hand. There you go.
Yes.
This is so not what's supposed to happen. Hold your hand down here.
Yes.
You haven't got quite enough spring in there, Adam.
No, I might have to. Yes, there we go.
There you go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Go. We both did bloody brilliantly. I mean, that was amazing.
Yes,
I mean, how on earth?
yes. Well,
you know what my favourite part of this is?
Picking them up.
Yes, Adam. I'm so looking forward to seeing you do that. Because
yes, I think I'm going to leave that till the end of the podcast because otherwise I'm going to look a little bit, even more cat-candid than I normally am. Anyway,
I thought it was a valiant effort.
I think it's a valiant effort myself. I'm gonna work at that.
Yes, you do that.
I was one of the few children I know that never had a magic set. Actually, so maybe that was the problem.
It was probably for the best.
Probably,
I mean,
probably for the best. Yes.
Your mum said, "Cat-handed. Let's not make him a magician.
Let's do things that don't involve cat-handedness." Yes. Anyway, Laura, this has been an absolute delight. Absolute delight. So thank you very, very much for being a guest on the podcast.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Where are you performing anywhere recently that you'd like people to know about?
I'm working on a new show, and I'm very, very excited about it because the show that I'm known for is all cards. This show is not, which is very, very much a fun thing to go back to the start and learning. And I've got the amazing Jonathan Goodwin who's working on it with me, so I'm very, very fortunate. And I hope to start taking that out and about.
Okay,
maybe
and that'll
at the
be,
end
I
of
presume,
next year.
on your website once you...
Yes, on my Instagram, Laura
Fine.
London
Okay,
52,
well,
which is quite a good...
We'll put those details in the show
yes.
notes. But this has been great. Thank you very, very much, Laura London, magician, not female magician, just a magician.
Just magician, Laura London.
Magician, Laura London. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and I do hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, do visit our socials or at the Variety Show Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube. See you all soon. Thank you.
Bye.